Hello and welcome to another Big Finish review. In this Big Finish review, we'll be looking at the story The Two Masters. Now this is where the Master Trilogy's been leading up to this. Now from the cover you can see it does look very action-packed and blockbuster-esque really, doesn't it? And we'll see whether the story carries that through. And obviously this is the first time ever to be a multi-master story, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened before, because you think it's such a simple idea to, a multi-master story. We all crave for multi-doctor stories, so how about a multi-master story? This has been requested a fair bit for Big Finish to do, and Big Finish finally jumped on the bandwagon and did it, and we've got this, and it's definitely an interesting story. So without further ado, let's look how this story is presented, then we're going to my initial thoughts on the synopsis, then we will go on to my thoughts on
the cover art we have the 7th Doctor, the Alex McQueen Master, the Crispy Master, a planet and a missile, and some explosions there, which is quite an action-packed cover like I've said. Got the Doctor Who banner there, the spine, and the back, so do feel free to pause to know what this story is about, and of course the class. Then we have the disc art, which is exactly the same as
what did I think
cover.
when the synopsis and the title was revealed? Well, obviously the Two Masters, so there was a lot of hype when that was announced in Doctor Who magazine, where it had Geoffrey Beevers and Alex McQueen in the same audio. Doesn't that sound great? I mean, Geoffrey Beevers' Master, Big Finish have done wonders for him, because obviously he only had that little bit in Keeper of Track, and they've expanded his Master a hell of a lot in the story, like Master from the Villains Trilogy, dust breeding, and he's done a lot of work with the 4th Doctor and the 4th Doctor, well, Tom Baker and the 4th Doctor Adventure, so that's great stuff. And obviously Alex McQueen's just fantastic. I mean, to me, he's the only good thing about Dark Ice 3 and McGann, obviously. And obviously everything he's in, he's just fantastic. Even as Gabriel in Paradise 5, he's just fantastic. So I was very interested, because obviously those two masters are an absolute contrast of each other, because obviously Geoffrey Beevers' Master is quite straight and serious, and Alex McQueen's quite witty and the funny sort of master. So that was quite exciting just to see how those would interact. And from the synopsis I thought, wow, this does seem like a blockbuster story, and it really does match with the cover. With these whole gaps in time gaps in time forming, so that sounded very interesting, and obviously that would give the story a lot of scale. But when I listened to Vampire of the Mind, my hype for this sort of diminished, thinking, okay, I've got to lower my hype for this, because otherwise I might come out of this story disappointed, and then obviously you'll find out whether I did come out disappointed or not in a couple of seconds really. So there we are. I mean, actually the trailer, I've got to mention the trailer. The trailer, what goes with the Two Masters, I don't think does the story justice. I think the story is completely different to what the story, from what the trailer is. So the question you're probably all asking yourself, do I need to listen to the other two stories to understand the Two Masters? Now I personally would say yes, because the Two Masters does draw on both stories. I mean, I think that it draws on And You Will Obey Me the most, with the whole dragonfly assassins. Yes, you know my thoughts on that, I absolutely hate them, because it gives the Master a backstory, what the hell was going on with the Master in those two stories. So I think that it explains what was going on brilliantly, because the Two Masters, it brings all the plot points together, and John Dorney bakes a lovely sponge cake. Yeah, that's an analogy I may use again. Very interesting. But if you are just going to get the Two Masters, I feel that you're just cheating yourself on the satisfaction of knowing, what is happening with the Master, why are there gaps, what's happening, because, each plot point, what is given you, the main surprises and the main shock factors are sort of spoiled in this. So I think that if you've listened to the two stories and then you listen to the Two Masters, it becomes quite a satisfying conclusion to the trilogy, because when you listen to these two standalone, they don't really interlink in any way. I mean, you can listen to them and you won't really do yourself any justice, but it's probably advisable to listen to these two stories before you go on to the Two Masters, because I just think that it'll become a much more satisfying conclusion for you, if you understand what I mean. I mean, if you can pick up stuff alright and you're not too fussed about the endings being spoiled, then by all means do check out the Two Masters. The Two Masters, I'll be honest, I was very sceptical about this release for obvious reasons, such as overhyping and Vampire of the Mind, what made me worry. But thankfully John Dorney has pulled off this mammoth task, with it definitely having this grand blockbuster feel. From space battles to high stake moments, the story itself does have this 90s feel. Whether that's because of the TV movie TARDIS sounds and TV movie 7th Doctor,
And also the story does sort of remind me of Star Wars in some areas. But in terms of masters, this story brings something new for the master to do. Not in terms of story, but character. Right then, the individual parts. Part 1, right from the off, you are flung into this adventure with having a great scale and also telling us what the story is about. Part 1 also brings to the table great gripping moments along with suspense, alongside great character moments between the Doctor and Jemima with a great twist for a cliffhanger. Now, John Dorney also made his creations, the Rocketmen, reappear. What do start the plotline about the gaps what feature the famous space thugs. And we also get nice little throwbacks to previous outings of the Rocketmen, such as Requiem of the Rocketmen. Part 2 is where we see the great space battle, what creates some great imagery with the TARDIS weaving through missiles. The part itself is where it starts to begin to connect the other stories from the Master Trilogy together, which does lead to a really gripping cliffhanger. But I will say the twist in it, for me, is a bit sort of predictable, because the way some things are in the story you can sort of tell. But from the people I've been speaking to, they didn't see the twist coming. It may be just me who found out the twist a bit earlier than I was meant to, but still, the twist in the story for the cliffhanger is pretty darn good nonetheless. Part 3, however, is very much Doctor-like, but the two masters carried off perfectly without me thinking, when's the Doctor going to appear? Within this part, the main focus is exposition on McQueen's master, what he's doing, because we get this scene in part 1 of McQueen's master going to see this cult, and this story is very much, this part is very much exposition on what McQueen's master was planning, and the story gives the cult of the heretic more expansion and knowing what part they play along with the master. The part also goes into kind of detail about the master's timeline, explaining on how the master got crispy. To me, this is the part what contains the strongest cliffhanger and makes you think, how's the Doctor going to get out of this one? And what I like about this cliffhanger as well, you get a bit of a pause after the events happen to make you sort of take in the event what just happened, which I think is really nice before the credits roll, so it sort of gets you time to go, okay. It gives you time to breathe, really. Banter begins. The part is where we see the two masters join forces, with it very much being Geoffrey Beevers being the straight man and Alex McQueen being the funny one. Now, don't let that put you off, because they are really dominant with some moments within this part and this story. You actually fear the master, and this story has reminded me and made me realise how good the master is if he is dealt in the right hands, because the master's plan really does come full circle with them having control of the whole universe. Characters: the Doctor, Sylvester McCoy. Like I said, the Doctor isn't the main focus, which is excusable as this is the first time the multi-master story has been done. So you can excuse that for Big Finish for saying, right, okay, the two masters are going to be the focus. Heck, they're in the title. But McCoy has a trilogy coming up next, so it sort of balances itself out, really. But the moments he does have are fantastic. He does have some light-hearted moments, how he is insulted by not being the master's number one enemy, and he's just fed up of putting his hands up. But to me, the best bits for McCoy in this story is when he goes dark and brooding to the master, as the Seventh Doctor likes to be in control of situations. So when the Seventh Doctor isn't in control, we see a different side of the Seventh Doctor, and I like seeing the Seventh Doctor in those scenarios, which does lead him into this great moral dilemma. And by the end of it, we see the Seventh Doctor have his godlike status, with him having this Times Champion moment, which is just a great moment in Part 4. Crispy Master, or as Big Finish like to put it on the credits, Old Master. Geoffrey Beevers is just superb, and I have to say, both masters definitely steal the show. This story really does give Geoffrey Beevers something fresh and exciting to do, as Part 1 focuses on his master, with him just being ruthless and brutal, with him TCing people, and his opening line in the story will just make you smile, and how he manipulates the Doctor is superb, with the scenes but the Doctor and the Master are in the first two halves of the story are just electric. Honestly, I think this is Geoffrey Beevers at his best at the Master. I mean, I know Master was a pretty good story, but I think this is probably my favourite Geoffrey Beevers Master story, and his haunting screams will just send shivers down your spine. The story really does make you fear his Master alongside this sinister dialogue, and it definitely makes your nightmares made flesh. Alex McQueen, the Baldy Master. Yes, part 2 is when his master starts to come into play, with him having this great dominance on how he just puts people into their place, with him owning the cult of the heretic and how he manipulates both sides with his smooth and charming ways. But in between those moments we get some nice little subtle moments, but he's very much the comic relief in an evil way on how he sort of comes up with these witty one-liners before he kills people, leading to some great moments between Beavers and McQueen. Honestly, who knew evil could be so charming? Jemima, played by Lauren Crace. Nice little one-off companion with great chemistry with the Doctor, with her asking the right questions. The character is fleshed out with us getting a backstory, and I love the scene when she stands up to the Master. My only problem is her ending. I just wished what happened to her stayed, and it's like John Dorney, the way it is, John Dorney made her sort of end her ending like a new series companion. I wanted her ending to stay as it was. I didn't want her sort of ending to be tampered with, but John Dorney went down sort of the new series companion line, which I'm not really a fan of, to be honest. So to conclude, this is definitely a satisfying conclusion to the Master Trilogy. I love the scale of it, I love how it just ties up all these plot points and making these loosely connected stories all come together to create this great showdown of it, with it having this great thrilling music and sound design. John Dorney really has created a masterpiece. My only negative being Jemima's ending. So let's conclude on the Master Trilogy, shall we? In third place we have Vampire of the Mind, scoring a 7 out of 10. In second place we have Doctor Who and You Will Obey Me, scoring an 8 out of 10. And finally, the two Masters, I will rate a 10 out of 10. A superb story, bar my little negative with Jasmine. The story is practically perfect. So to conclude, the overall rating of these scores is 25, so if we divide that by 3, the average rating for this trilogy is an 8.3, so let's just round that up to an 8. So the overall rating for this trilogy is 8 out of 10. A pretty good rating, if you ask me, and it's definitely an improvement on the Locum Doctors trilogy. So if you want to see any more, if you want to see my reviews on Doctor Who and You Will Obey Me and Vampire of the Mind, I'll put a link in the description so you can check out those reviews. So that concludes this video, that concludes the Master Trilogy. Now we move on to the 7th Doctor, Ace and Mel, so that'll be very interesting, whether it be in the same style as Season 24. If you know me, I'm not really a big fan of Season 24. We'll just have to see how that trilogy pays out. So without further ado, that's all I have to say on this. So thank you very much for watching this review, and I'll see you on my next video, whatever that will be. So thank you very much, and bye bye.